Has your weight loss journey become a year-long or multi-year project? You eat less and less, counting your calories, but the weight is not coming off? So you starve yourself for weeks, only to feel so ravenous that you devour 3 pizzas and a bag of chips in one meal. Or maybe you think you're eating healthy foods, salmon twice a week, and the scale keeps going up, not down? It was only when my family and I followed the 10 principles for a whole foods, plant-based lifestyle, crowding out, then eliminating the meat, seafood, dairy, eggs, and ultra-processed foods from our plates, that we were able to lose the weight and keep the weight off. We were able to create a plate that we enjoyed. We could eat as much as we wanted. Our health improved and we lost weight. You're probably thinking that sounds too good to be true. In this video, let's start the weight loss journey discussion. We'll continue the discussion in future videos, but here, let's look at some numbers and a couple of studies. Then we'll look at one weight loss strategy, a weight loss tip, and I have an opportunity, if you're a positive thinker, or a challenge if you're a realist, for you. Have you noticed over the past 20 years that we are all getting fatter? You don't need statistics to tell you this, but you know I'm going to give them to you. According to the World Health Organization, worldwide obesity has nearly tripled since 1975. In 2016, 39% of adults aged 18 years and over across the planet were overweight and 13% were obese. How about this for a sadder statistic? In the US, 2017 to 2020, the CDC says that almost 42% of adults 20 and over are considered obese. For adults, the CDC and the WHO define overweight as a BMI greater than or equal to 25 and obesity as a BMI greater than or equal to 30. Severe obesity is 40 and above. Body mass index, or BMI, is a simple index of weight for height that is commonly used to classify overweight and obesity in adults. It is defined as a person's weight in kilograms divided by the square of their height in meters, or kilograms over meters squared. The CDC has a calculator for you that converts pounds to kilograms and inches to meters automatically. Yes, BMI can be considered an oversimplification. However, it gives us a quick check, an indicator of our weight, and it allows us to look across the planet at patterns and trends in weight. And as I said before, look around you, look in the mirror. Our weight is not trending downward. Take a look at this chart of the US's overweight and obesity numbers. The numbers are age adjusted by the direct method to the US Census 2000 estimates using the age groups 20 to 39, 40 to 59, and 60 to 74. The 1960 to 1962 National Health Examination Survey included adults aged 18 to 79, and the 1971 to 1974 and 1976 to 1980 National Health and Nutrition Examination surveys did not include individuals over age 74. In each survey group, over 3,500 adults were surveyed. The biggest survey group was over 14,000. If we roll back to the 1960 to 1962 timeframe, 31.5% were overweight, 13.4% obese, and less than 1% were considered severely obese. That totals to about 46% of Americans. A worrisome trend in obesity starts in the mid-70s. During the 1988 to 1994 time period, overweight Americans were holding steady at 33%, but obesity rates increased to 23%. That brings us to the latest numbers, where overweight rates decreased a little, but obesity numbers skyrocketed. About 30% of Americans are overweight, 42.8% are obese, and 9.6% are severely obese. But don't worry, because the rest of the planet is too. Not only adults, but children too. In Africa, the number of overweight children under 5 has increased by nearly 24% since 2000. Almost half of the children under 5 who were overweight or obese in 2019 lived in Asia. Something is wrong here on our planet, and you already know how to fix this out-of-control weight gain problem. Counting calories and crash diets are not the solution. Dr. T. Colin Campbell writes, "The solution to losing weight is a whole foods, plant-based diet coupled with a reasonable amount of exercise. It is a long-term lifestyle change rather than a quick fix fad, and it can provide sustained weight loss while minimizing risk of chronic disease." But you knew that already, 7410 style. In this first study, effects of 7 days on an ad libitum low-fat vegan diet, the McDougall program cohort, published in October 2014, John McDougall and other authors documented that a low-fat, less than 10% of calories, high fiber, high carbohydrate, about 80% of calories, vegan diet allowed overweight patients to lose weight, even if they ate enough food to feel completely satisfied. This study was a retrospective analysis of the records of patients who attended a physician-supervised 10-day residential program from 2002 to 2011. A total of 1,615 patient records were included in the analyses. Patients were given opportunities for light to moderate exercise. From eating this diet for 7 days, the participants lost a median of 1.4 kilograms or 3 pounds and had significant improvements in blood pressure, blood glucose, and total cholesterol. The authors went on to say, unlike many popular weight loss regimens, the diet used in this study does not use calorie counting or other portion control strategies for weight loss. I wanted to use this study as an example of what is possible in a week. This was not a controlled study, but it can provide valuable evidence to us to show what is possible. Moderate exercise was allowed, so that could have contributed to the weight loss. It is difficult to perform randomized, blinded clinical trials for nutrition studies because you pretty much know when you're eating broccoli. So keep in mind that a study is a study. We are not searching for a silver bullet here. We can only take any study as a guide. The proof comes when you eat more plants yourself. Another limitation of this study is that the food was prepared for the participants on site. Dr. Michael Greger discusses this next study in How Not to Diet, where no food was prepared. He writes, a group of researchers in New Zealand published the BROAD study, a 12-week randomized controlled trial bringing a whole food, plant-based diet to the poorest region of the country with the highest obesity rates. Overweight individuals were randomized to receive either standard medical care or semi-weekly classes covering advice and encouragement to eat a low-fat diet centered around fruits, vegetables, whole grain, and legumes. The participants were free to eat all the healthy foods they wanted. The plant-based group lost an average of 19 pounds by the end of the 3-month study. The weight of the control group did not change significantly either way. At the end of the 12-week study, no additional instruction was given. They were on their own. Though the study had long since ended, the researchers brought back the participants at the 6-month mark. The plant-based group was down 27 pounds. Dr. Greger writes, the plant-based group had been feeling so good, both physically and mentally, and had been able to come off so many of their medications that they were sticking with the diet on their own, and the weight had continued to come off. The researchers checked a year later. You know how hard it is to stay on a diet for a whole year. Any weight lost in the first few months always creeps back in. This plant-based group kept the weight off the entire year. Dr. Greger puts the exclamation point on this study. A whole food, plant-based diet achieved the greatest weight loss ever recorded at 6 and 12 months compared to any other such intervention published in the medical literature. How do we apply the information from these two studies? Hopefully you recognize the 10 principles for a whole foods, plant-based lifestyle and create a plate in starting and sticking with your diet in these studies. Maybe you're using the dip your toes in the plant-based pool method. In that case, half of your plate might start out with meat, fried, not baked, French fries, and cheese. A few months later, you might be adding baked beans and fruit to your plate, and only a third is left for meat and cheese. Soon, only a quarter of your plate is left for meat and cheese, until you don't have any room for meat, dairy, cheese, and eggs. In How Not to Diet, Dr. Greger discusses many strategies for losing weight. Let's talk about one, fiber. Fiber is a part of the plant's cellular structure. Only plants have fiber. Nutritionally, fiber is a complex carbohydrate. Dr. Will Bolsowitz writes, if you take multiple sugar molecules and link them together, you'd get fiber. But it's not like refined table sugar that is absorbed in the small intestine in 20 minutes. On the other hand, fiber remains unblemished as it passes through your mouth, stomach, and even 15 to 20 feet of small intestine, so that by the time it reaches your colon, it's the same molecule that went in your mouth. In How Not to Diet, Dr. Greger writes, telling people to increase their intakes of fiber-rich foods may actually be one of the single most effective pieces of advice for weight loss. The reason is that our gut bacteria, which weigh more than one of our kidneys, thrive on fiber. Our gut bacteria make short-chain fatty acids with the fiber. These short-chain fatty acids can be absorbed into our bloodstreams and even end up in our brains. They affect our immune function, inflammation, mental health, and may even play a key role in regulating our appetites, metabolisms, and body fat. In free fatty acid receptor 2 and nutrient sensing, a proposed role for fiber, fermentable carbohydrates, and short-chain fatty acids in appetite regulation, Michelle Sleeth and other authors discuss how the hunter-gatherer Paleolithic diet delivered more than 100 grams of fiber per day. The U.S. recommends 28 grams of fiber in a 2,000 calorie diet. Dr. Greger describes how calories may have been balanced in our Paleolithic bodies, where the large amounts of fiber could easily provide the signaling to stop eating. This feedback loop is a modification of Michelle Sleeth and others and Dr. Greger's diagrams. As we eat large amounts of foods, in other words fiber, during Paleolithic times, our bodies would detect the change because of the increase in short-chain fatty acid production. This in turn would activate the free fatty acid receptors all over the body that then stimulated the secretion of hormones like peptide, YY, and glucagon-like peptides. This secretion of hormones notifies the eat less signaling to increase and the eat more signaling to decrease, which we can translate as cravings and hunger pangs. So we would eat less. As the fiber intake dropped, our bodies would produce less short-chain fatty acids, decrease the activation of the free fatty acid receptors, secrete fewer hormones, and signal our bodies that it was time to eat again. In this diagram of modern times, our food no longer has much fiber. Our bodies are short-circuited and only get the signals to eat more and more. Even though we eat plenty of calories, we're always hungry because we never get the fiber-induced signaling to tell us we're full. Think about your Create plate. How can you add more fiber to your Create plate? There's no fiber in meat, dairy, cheese, eggs, and usually very little, if any, fiber in ultra-processed foods like chips and cookies. What foods have fiber? Whole grains, including oats and whole wheat. Vegetables, including broccoli, kale, arugula, spinach. Fruit, including apples, blueberries, raspberries. Beans and legumes, some of the cheapest forms of fiber. And don't forget mushrooms and seaweed. Here's your tip. Did you catch that an apple has fiber? So easy to have on hand, you could even leave some on your counter or desk for a quick snack. In How Not to Diet, Dr. Greger discusses a method, preloading, that causes people to eat fewer calories in their meal. From studies on preloading, he writes that eating about a cup of food before a meal decreases subsequent intake by about 100 calories. To get a negative calorie effect, the preload has to contain fewer than 100 calories per cup. Preloading can be done with water or a small salad. Give a small salad to people before they eat a pasta meal and they consume about 200 fewer calories. However, eating a large apple before a pasta meal caused the people to eat 300 fewer calories. If the apple was consumed as applesauce, they ate about 200 fewer calories. Whatever is used has to be eaten before the meal, not with the meal. So the whole apple provides the best result for weight loss. 74-10 style is a whole foods, plant-based lifestyle. To achieve this healthful lifestyle, a 10 physically and mentally takes our effort 7 days a week. In other words, we live this lifestyle 7 days a week, practicing the 10 principles to achieve a forever 10. Your challenge for the next week is to eat an apple or a cup of fiber-filled fruit each day before lunch or dinner. And notice, pay attention to your body. Listen for the signals. Do you notice a difference? Do you hear your body trying to talk to you, letting you know that it is feeling fuller? Keep working on your creative plate. Pile on those plants. You'll feel so full, there won't be much room for meat, dairy, eggs, or cheese. And remember to take it one day at a time until it's 7 days a week, forever 10.